cherish,
and to obey.
We didn't talk about that one in counseling.
We did talk about that in counseling.
So lots of respect to the sister with her video that she has created, that has given me the opportunity to do the Most High God will in this, right? So before I jump into this, please click below on her video that I tagged her in, so you can get the full context of the scenario and her response. Now, in this scenario, we see three people in what is often called marriage or wedding ceremony. The three people include the bride, the groom, and the officiant or the minister. They are all in the process of reciting and declaring before people in the ceremony the rights of what's called the modern marriage. Now be clear, be very clear. I am in no way, shape or form saying this ceremony is required, correct, or appropriate according to the teachings of Jesus. All right. So again, in no way, shape, or form am I declaring or saying this is correct, required, or appropriate according to the teachings of Jesus or the Father, if you will. So, because it is not. But it's important that I say this to meet people where they are. So here we are, right? In this video, we observed three responses, right? When you watch the whole video and in the clip that I give you, you observe three responses. You observe the rejection from the bride. You observe the avoidance from the groom. And you observe the deflection from the officiant. So again, the bride rejects the notion of obey, where the groom avoids the notion of obey through his laughter. And then you see the officiant deflect the notion of obey in his scold to her. Yet, here we are with the yet. The burden of the error is largely placed on the bride. And if you go watch this young lady's video and her response and the comments of her video, you'll see that a lot of people put the burden on the wife, saying the wife is wrong or the bride is wrong. And this happens because society has been indoctrinated into thinking that the position of a wife requires a woman to become less than a man. So I'm going to say that again. This happens because society has been indoctrinated into thinking that the position of a wife requires a woman to become less than a man in his position or the position of a husband. Okay? But I'm here to tell you, this is a false teaching. So when we look at Matthew 19, when we look at Genesis 2:24, we see reference to male and female. This is a reminder. Remember, male and female, we created them, is what you find in Genesis, right? So in understanding the scenario, the burden of the error really falls pretty much entirely on the officiant, on the minister, on the officiant, not efficient, on the officiant, the minister, or the so-called man of God, right? Because that's what he's supposed to be, right? So, to all them folks that put the burden on her, here we go. If he actually did cover the notion, because he deflected, right? If he actually did cover the notion of obey, as often found in these scriptures, depending on the translation, all right, King James, New International, American Standard, New King James, whatever, depending on the translation, usually the word submit is used, and the meaning of submit is either confused or absent entirely, right? So the word obey is usually mistranslated or written the scripture as submit. So again, usually the word submit is used and the meaning of submit is either confused or absent entirely, right? And so in in 6 of the 9 instances where this ideology, this theology comes from Paul or one of Paul's companions. And if you watched a few of my videos or enough of my videos, you know I don't teach Paul. You know, I'll refer to Paul because other people refer to Paul, but I don't teach Paul. I teach Jesus. So, and again, 6 of the 9 most common verses dealing with marriage and this obey doctrine and teaching comes from Paul or Paul's companion. The 3 verses that's not Paul do not use or translate to submit or obey at all. Those verses, for example, or one of those verses, for example, is Genesis, again, as I referred to earlier, 2:24, which is the original form of marriage. And the verse says they are to become one flesh, right? Either through the announcement, this is my husband, this is my wife. That's the announcement. That's the one flesh in the context of Genesis 2-24. And this again is the simple, you know, the announcing this is my wife or this is my husband is the simple side of the scale of marriage. But on the more complex side of the scale, here we find again, we see Jesus talking in the more complex in Matthew 19 and specifically verse 5, using the same terminology, one flesh. So that's to describe something completely different, but it's still within the scale and the scope of what marriage is. And we'll get to that in a second. But so you might be asking at this point, where is the false teaching? So let me be clear. To say obey or to submit is not one flesh. Nowhere in the context of the one flesh does it denote a wife is intended to be less or is less than a husband, right? Rather, it's in Genesis or in Matthew where we see Jesus speaking. To put it literally means in the context of the word obey, right? It means, the word submit means to put under order. So like the what now? Yeah. You heard me. A wife is meant to be a husband's facilitator of order, right? It means she's the one that is supposed to give order to his life and to the things and his operation and how he operates. So I'm sure people might, you know, wrestle against me in that concept and that thought process. And, you know, I'm here for it. That's what I'm here for. But that's what it means in the context of to be one flesh. When we see Adam in the garden and, you know, we're looking at his position and his mode of operation, you know, he was given to her because the Most High saw that he needed a help. And that help was her giving him order, if that makes sense. So, again, when we think about Adam and Eve, this is the sense that we're trying to see. So I hope this gives clarity to this concept and this false teaching of wives obey your husband, because that is not what it means. So I'm Brother Tezwan. This is Out of All Your Boxes. Peace.